We'll wait for Mr. J and Mr. Z. I know Mr. Z said he's got the baby to pick up the baby to put to sleep.
It's understandable.
So, yeah, he's got a newborn, Mr. Z, and but I guess Mr. J, Mr. Justin is going to join us in just a second. But we might as well kick off thing because we're the two most important members of the Horsemen anyway. So you know that to be true. So. All
yeah,
right,
that's true.
Yeah, it's most certainly true. Here we go, and it is a rainy, stormy. Well, it's I don't know what kind of night it is outside, but it's pretty windy, not so much stormy. It's dark and dreary, we can say, night. And folks at home, welcome to a very special edition of, well, we can call this the Horseman Roundtable. And you RueTV fans at home know the person sitting across the room from me right now is a legend, an icon, and a sports-minded, we can call him wrestling-minded genius, Mr. Lane, sir. Mr. Lane, sir.
What's going on?
It's good to see you, my man. It's good to see you. Last time I saw you was when was the last time I saw you? When we went.
Well, it was AEW Revolution where we had Sting's last match. It was the Sting Darby Allin against the Young Bucks at the time. So
Yeah.
I do remember going to Buffalo Wild Wings, and we did go there, and it was Sting's last match.
Yeah.
And at the time, AEW was selling tickets for that show in, I believe it was I forget the Coliseum name, but I think it was the same arena where Ric Flair had his last match. I think
Greensboro Coliseum.
I believe it was the same arena where Flair had his last match, I believe, at the time. So they had a little bit of like a Jim Crockett Promotions type show. So I do remember that. Yep.
I hope folks at home, if you saw that video, if you didn't see it, go back and watch it. Mr. Lane and I had a great time at Dave and Buster's watching Sting's last match. Also joining us tonight, I should say, is the one, the only Horseman Hangout horseman legend, my brother, Justin DiBiase. Jussie, how are you tonight?
Well, hello, one, and hello, all, and hello to Mr. Dave, and hello to Mr. Buster. That's what I call the two of you tonight. Dave and Buster. I'm not going to tell you which one is Dave and which one is Buster. I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
Dave and Buster. Well, I don't know if folks at home can see this or hear this, but there is somebody else entering the room, and I'm not talking about that wind that's coming in my window right now. I see somebody that's about to enter the room, and he is our one. Folks at home, you might not know. There he is. Look at that. Look at that. I am envious of not only his base.
Look at Mr. Lane. He's giddy like a little schoolgirl. Look at how giddy he is.
I am envious. I am envious of not only this man's baseball genius, but also his lush head of hair, which I do not have. Folks at home, Mr. Z, Mr. Zorzi has entered the chat. Z, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, you sound fantastic. Yeah, the baby's sleeping. You got to keep it low, though, right? The new baby's sleeping.
I gotta keep it low. New baby's sleeping. That's why I'm not in the Mr. Z's usual office. I'm in the kitchen. But happy to be here. I'm glad I
happy. Look at this. Look at the original Horseman on a Horseman Hangout. When was the last time?
My.
When was the last time this happened? When was the last time this happened? And a lot has happened since the last time. I mean, specifically the past couple weeks. I mean, some major happenings in the world of wrestling. I mean, Justin, Anthony, and I, along with my brother Kevin and our friend Joe, attended WrestleMania festivities, including night one in Philadelphia, which was a blast. Mr. Lane, did you get to watch Mania at all, or not really?
Nah, well, I only saw the highlights, honestly, but I am aware of the results of the show and whatnot. And from what I've heard and from what I've seen, and it was probably they say it's one of the best shows World Wrestling Entertainment's ever done. That's what I've heard on social media. Like they drew like a lot of money basically for the 2-night event at the Link, technically home of the Eagles, by the way.
Yeah,
home of the Eagles, who won that 52nd Super Bowl. So
y'all see that?
I'll leave it at that. So yeah,
I guess y'all saw the clip on Twitter of the Eagles mascot and the cheerleaders jubilating in the ring, right? They were jubilating.
Mr. Lane, I just want to jump in. You do realize that we are in 2024 and they're streaming, and it's not like if you miss the pay-per-view live, you don't have to watch it live. You could stream it later. You are aware you could watch WrestleMania now.
I'm aware of these video services now, and I would like to get into that, a little later. It's because I've been wanting to get this material off my chest on from my perspective and my perspective alone, why I don't want to watch World Wrestling Entertainment right now. I think we'll explain. I'll save that for later. I think personally, I want to hear your all angles on WrestleMania, and I've heard a lot about the show, and I know they had the Wrestle. I think like the I forget WrestleFest or whatever it's called. They had like a wrestling festival that they would have. I think trying to think because they had some events around Philadelphia where they have it technically where every WrestleMania city is at, where you'll see some wrestlers from other organizations come together and basically will, sign autographs and
Well,
whatnot.
it was very fun. We met Marty Jannetty. We met Danhausen from AEW. Justin met Kurt
Saw that.
Angle. Kurt Angle. We saw Tito Santana. We saw Jim Duggan. We saw everybody. Who's who list of people were at
Divas.
WrestleCon. You would have loved it, Mr. Lane. You would have loved it. Wish we could have brought you along, but unfortunately,
It's cool though.
just didn't work out. But it's been a hectic week. It's been a hectic week in wrestling. And you guys at home, we're gonna milk the shit out of this. But last night on AEW, Tony Khan made the decision to air the infamous footage of the backstage altercation between CM Punk and Jungle Boy Jack Perry, aka the son of the late Luke Perry,
Right.
Beverly Hills 90210. I'd rather instead of me ranting and raving about this whole deal, folks at home know I want to hear what the Horsemen have to think about this whole thing. I guess we can start with Mr. Lane because he's carrying the flag, the banner of on his chest there of AEW. So I'm gonna tap out for a little bit and let you guys go. Plus, I have to get my dog Maui out of the room. So take
All
it away,
right.
take it away, Mr. Lane. Go.
Well, I did send, I think, everybody a text message of the video. I was just, recording Dynamite at the time. Um, Well, there was question if Tony Khan was going to really do this or not, but I'm like 50-50 about this, to be honest with you, because with this all-in footage, it's like a lot of controversy. Let's be real about that. It was a lot of controversy. Be real quick about it. For one, Jack Perry was supposed to be in AEW. I think he had been suspended indefinitely because of this incident in London. And what from the reports that I saw, he was last wrestling in Japan, number one. Number two, he asked for his release from AEW, but was not granted it by, I believe, the AEW, Tony Khan and AEW guys. He did ask for his release, was not granted it. So that's a second factor. And then with the Hawaii interview, I've heard. I didn't see the interview. Yeah, well, that's his name. Punk did an interview with him where he's a very credible MMA reporter. He's been doing it for quite some time. I think he had some controversy with the UFC, but whatever. Point of it is he got to the point with the CM Punk interview, and a lot of people have been saying online, "Oh, CM Punk's accurate with AEW," and as far as that's concerned, he's probably most likely right about it. But AEW needs, just to clean up its act to a degree. Stick to your brand. This brand that I'm wearing t-shirt wise is the reason why WWE, and I've been want to say this offhand, I don't want to see WWE become a quote unquote monopoly. I don't want to see that. Because when we grew up, it was WCW versus WWF at the time. There was good quality competition back then. We're talking about from like the mid 90s to the early 2000s. You had two wrestling brands that were on national television that went at it. I like to see that again because for 20 plus years prior to this brand that I'm wearing, it was primarily WWE because I don't want to hear about the Impact nonsense saying, "Oh, Impact was alternate." No, it wasn't. No, it was not because it lacked the television contract that AEW has, which is TNT, TBS. They're on Turner, and you can watch a little bit of the material on Max. They do have a show called All Access on Max for AEW. So, having said that, if it isn't for AEW, WWE, in my mind, and I know it's going to be an unpopular take on this, would be a monopoly. I'm sorry. I mean, that's how I feel about this. I want to see something different. I want to see wrestlers that I haven't seen before. Like I have seen a little bit of the Young Bucks in Ring of Honor. I've never heard of Orange Cassidy or the Best Friends or some of these wrestlers were organically over on their own, technically in AEW. That's just my take on it.
Technically over. Yeah.
So I'm just saying, because the best, and last but not least, the best storyline I think they ever did was obviously Wardlow and MJF. MJF is one of the best wrestlers, I think, in any organization. I mean, imagine if WWE had MJF. How would you book him?
It's coming. It's coming.
Because I mean,
It'll
we've
be
heard
there.
about the contracts and whatnot with MJF, but he's technically with AEW right now. But imagine if he went to WWE. How would you book him? How would you give him a championship match? Would you book him like in the upper mid? Would you book him for a world title run? Because the man can get over on his own. That is how great Maxwell Jacob Freeman is. All right, I'll let you all talk about the AEW angle. I'm open ears. Go ahead. Whoever wants to speak about it next. I don't care if it's Rue, Justy, Z.
Boy.
Go ahead.
All right. Well, who wants to take the throne? The throne. Who wants to sit on the throne?
I'll go.
All
I have
right.
some stuff to say.
All right, Jussie, go. We don't hear from you much about this stuff, so let's go.
All right. So I'll go. As far as AEW in general, previous to this WrestleMania run, I was a wrestling fan so much as we would get together and watch Rumble, we would watch Mania, and I would be on the periphery. Same goes for AEW. I would stay, up to speed on social media. Me and Rue, once in a while, we got together, Dave and Buster's, and watched All In. I thought it was a great show. I really enjoyed watching the product.
Yep.
And yes, Mr. Lane, I'll agree with you that I think, and I talked to the guys about this before, I think the presence of AEW has raised the bar. I mean, there's some other reasons, but it's given WWE a kick in the butt in the hindquarters, and they've really stepped up their game, and they've really smashed it, similar to what they did to WCW. Although AEW never really overtook WWE like WCW
Right.
back in the
Right.
day.
I'm not saying that they've beaten WWE in like ratings and whatnot. I mean, they only beat NXT, but NXT is basically NXT. That's like the lower tier of WWE. It's not the same league as like a SmackDown, which I think is one of their best shows. Raw is right there. Raw is like number two ratings wise, obviously. So there you
Yeah.
go. There you
Okay,
be.
so that's point one on AEW for me. Like I still enjoy, I will watch a pay-per-view and it's good wrestling. I don't care about the storylines. I don't think they're very interesting. But yeah, I really like Will Ospreay. I like some of the guys. MJF is a stud, and I'm praying he comes to WWE because I'd love to see him there. The Punk thing, I'm gonna let Rue take that. I mean, the way I feel is the way he feels. So, um, Jungle Boy, it was just ridiculous. It's a sad thing by Tony Khan to try to get ratings. It was just so. It was great seeing online everybody 100% basically was like not 100%, 95% was like laughing at this attempt. But I'm not really want to talk about that. What I do
I
want
don't.
to
Yeah. Okay. Now continue. Continue.
I just want to talk about Mania and Mr. Lane not watching it, which I respect. But I want to tell you that when we bought tickets to WrestleMania, this was I don't know 5 6 7 months ago, and I was in that zone where I was on the periphery watching it but not really into it. I was super excited to be with the Horsemen. I wish you would have been there, Mr. Lane, to be at Mania. I was excited in Philly. Never in my wildest dreams would I have thought. I knew I was going to watch more as I got closer to Mania, but never would I have thought that the weeks and months leading in and now I would be watching the TV, all the TV shows, listening to podcasts about the show and storylines. I mean, WWE did such a good job for the past month or two to draw somebody like me in, who I haven't been that committed in a long time. And yeah, it may have been because Mania was in Philly, but I think a lot of it was just because how damn good it is now. And that Rock's Cody Reigns storyline was so good. And it's just they've done such a great job, and I can't. It's just been such a great new era, as they say, and I'm looking forward to going forward. I'm already thinking about where they're going to go with all the guys.
Yeah. I'm interested in finding out how they can keep this interesting without Rock, because Rock is going to be off TV. He's working, as he does. He's full-time movie actor. And I, I don't want to say that it would have been a bad build or even a bad Mania if there wasn't Rock. But I think he played a pivotal role in this whole thing. Now, is that a good thing or a bad thing? To me, it doesn't bother me. If Rock wants to wrestle, you can use him. He's a legend, as long as he's not taking other people's spots unjustifiably. I think they played it perfectly. This was some of the best work the Rock's ever done on the mic in terms of like segments and storyline wise. Um,
The
but
decision for him to go heel, sorry, Ray, the decision
yeah,
to him go
yeah,
heel was made everything because he was going to come in and do him against Roman. And the other times he's came in the past and done his spiel, it
yeah,
felt like forced. But him coming in and turning heel was like when the other day in Philly on Raw when he just said he called us all a bunch of trailer park trash. And I'm
Trailer
like,
park trash.
it was amazing, just
yeah.
classic. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, I mean, there's a situation where there's two guys, and everybody knows I'm a big Punk fan, but to, just having The Rock and CM Punk back in the mix, which you didn't think was going to happen in November, by January, both were in the mix. Of course, Punk was injured, but even with Punk being injured, you got a side of Drew McIntyre you never saw before that made the world titles picture infinitely more entertaining. Like the people didn't give a shit about that title
Yeah.
prior to Punk coming into the scene and bringing that side out of Drew. Uh, 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 um, and parallel to that would be The Rock coming into the Bloodline storyline. Not that people didn't care about the Bloodline storyline, but if you remember, everybody wanted Cody to finish the story, of course. But if you remember, right before Rock got involved with the story, there were people. There was kind of like a chatter online of like, I don't know, how long is this Bloodline going to go on? Like it's kind of getting stagnant, and then boom, it got the kick in the ass it needed when The Rock came in, and it became this whole big thing again. The best story in wrestling, in my opinion. Um, and there's many layers to it. So would Mania have been as interesting if CM Punk and The Rock were not involved? I don't think so. But again, I don't think it would have been a bad show. And I think the lead in, I think they understand how to hook people now with Hunter at the helm. I mean, I wasn't the biggest Hunter fan as a person, but I think ultimately he listens to the fans a lot more than Vince does because Vince a lot of times was stubborn and frankly a little bit old. Conversely, the opposite owner and the other company, Tony Khan, who is a little bit younger than me, even. I believe Tony just turned 41 or so, 40 or 41. Z, what is your opinion of it's a good segue of the opposite of Triple H,
Pipe,
the
pipe bomb coming.
the person who I mean, we've seen. I say what you want about him, other than Dixie Carter. I mean, he's out. He's overshined Dixie Carter's attempt. He's the closest competition. He has created the closest competition to WWE that we've seen since WCW. Mr. Z, what are your thoughts on one Tony Khan?
Well, before we get into that, I just want to kind of echo some of the sentiments that we touched on earlier. I, I agree 100% with what Justin said. I consider myself a casual wrestling fan. I'm tuning in every now and then. I keep up following social media, and this is both with WWE and AEW. It's not like I can't stand those tribalist people who is just I'm team AEW or I'm team WWE. I think all wrestling is good. Indie wrestling, professional, mainstream wrestling. We've gone to local high school gyms and we've seen people like MJF, who Mr. Lane mentioned earlier, wrestle, and now he's a bona fide superstar. So all wrestling is good wrestling, and we should support, as fans, we should support all wrestling. So there's that, but I also wanted to touch on Mania because, like Justin said, I never thought that I would be this pulled in and watching weekly, DVRing it, watching it back, basically hanging on their storylines, and it has a lot to do with The Rock. I mean, we're all Rock fans. And like Justin said, turning The Rock heel was such a big and the right move because a lot of generations of younger fans who maybe have grown up during the PG era do not remember The Rock like this. They remember The Rock and his return matches. His promo when he came back on Jinder Mahal was a perfect example. He's the hero. He's the good guy. He's the people's champ. He's going to talk down to the heel and beat the crap out of him. The crowd's going to go home happy. Turning him heel, getting that persona out of him, and it was just like he picked up right where he left off in the mid to late 90s, and just seeing that again was awesome. It was absolutely awesome.
Yeah.
And seeing that side of Drew McIntyre, being as invested in that storyline as I was, I couldn't be more impressed with that guy. I just kind of thought he was a throwaway, 3-man band, left WWE, went on the indie circuit, made a name for himself, came back, got himself in better shape, had this persona now, held the title during COVID, but still, I wasn't. I'm like, oh, Drew McIntyre, whatever. He was great on the mic. He was great on social media. He was played the part perfectly of the troll with the Punk injury. And people were invested. People were invested in that match. People were invested in that title, like Rue said. And I couldn't be happier with the way WrestleMania turned out, not only because we were there, but for the city of Philadelphia to have that WrestleMania. And I think it upped the bar for future WrestleManias. And, the Northeast has always been a hub for wrestling because, WWE, WWF was based in Connecticut. And, you had your New York shows, your Philadelphia shows. I hope after this Mania that Philadelphia becomes more of a flagship home for these big events because the city absolutely deserves it. They loved their wrestling. They came out in droves, and it was such a fun weekend.
Yeah.
So I absolutely loved Mania. I was so happy that we were there. I enjoyed every minute of it, whether it was WrestleCon on Friday, Mania on Saturday, watching Mania on Sunday. I loved it.
It was a great time.
So
Absolutely.
I don't mean,
We may pick
I
the
don't
wrong
mean
night, though.
keep rambling, but do what you asked me. Yeah.
No,
so AEW. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I just would like to,
All right, I was gonna say,
in addition to Tony Khan, in addition to whatever you were just going to say about AEW, I'd like you to also chime in with your thoughts on last night's footage, unless you did while I was gone, that was presented by the.
I didn't get a chance to comment on that.
Okay.
So real quick in regards to last night's footage, I just don't get what the purpose of that is. It was a cheap ratings grab, and it seemed to have worked because he's already online bragging about how they had a 17% bump in ratings. Whoopee. But I don't think anyone's opinion changed after watching that. I certainly don't think anyone is going to be like, oh my God, I have to tune in next week because of that. It was pointless, and you could tell his own employees were embarrassed. I mean, the look on Tony Schiavone's face said it all.
Mr. Lane agrees with that. Mr. Lane agrees.
Well, that's what I've heard online. That's exactly what I've heard online. A lot of people were going after the Tony Schiavone reaction, right after that. He was shaking his head, and he was probably saying to himself, "Unbelievable." But really, the primary match and the next AEW pay-per-view is going to be called Dynasty, and the matchup. I'll just get to the straight point. The point is, it's going to be Young Bucks versus FTR. Yeah. Now, FTR, without a shadow of a doubt, has been one of the best tag teams in any wrestling organization. I mean, they're right up there. Now, the Young Bucks, I remember seeing them a little bit in Ring of Honor. They would super kick people. They'll do their whatever it is that they do. It's a double team, but FTR, I've always liked them there. Now, ever since they got their chance, they were done dirty in the WWE. That's really why they left in the first place. And then
dirty.
with AEW, they've raised the bar for themselves and the tag teams around them in AEW. That's just my personal take on it. I think the tag teams in AEW are extremely deep.
Now, Mr. Lane,
FTR is right there. Yes.
Mr. Lane, I have to add two things. Number one, why are you broadcasting from outside in the grass?
hey, I wanted to do a background thing, man. I'm just in the grass. I'm in the weeds, you know.
Easy, easy. This is a kids show. We're not doing
I'm
weeds.
only kidding. I don't do that crap. I can't do that. I just wanted to be creative. I wanted to just be original tonight. So that's why I have my background.
All right, so
Yes,
I have something being silly. I have something to add about that FTR thing real quick. So, when the decision was made that they wanted to air this footage, the way they spun it was the, and why the Young Bucks were part of this was the angle was, so if you remember, the Young Bucks lost to FTR in London,
that's
okay?
correct.
So they're the EVPs of the company, right? So before that match, this whole thing with Punk and Jungle Boy happened. So the way they justified airing the footage was they angled it into Young Bucks saying, if your buddy CM Punk didn't call, you were responsible. Your buddy was responsible for throwing us off our game because when that happened, it jeopardized the show. You know, we're the EVPs. We couldn't concentrate. So we ended up losing the match to FTR. We want to show you what your asshole buddy did to Jungle Boy. And now we're gonna beat you at Dynasty. Like that was
Yeah,
the
well,
now to me, I think that was formulated after the fact. I think Tony said after he saw the Ariel Hawani interview, well, I'm going to air this footage. I'm going to air this footage. I'm going to air the footage. Now, how can we spin this? And then after the fact, he decided, all right, well, we can use this for what I just told you. And to me, I don't think it was that good of an idea. I don't think it was that good benefited anything. And for people saying that, you know, the Jungle Boy thing, well, made Jungle Boy look bad. Far as I'm understand, Tony is pissed at Jungle Boy for forcing this whole thing to happen in the first place. So I don't think he has anything to lose with pissing off Jungle Boy. I don't think he had any intentions, even though I've heard rumors that this he wants to bring him back for whatever reason. I
yeah.
just think it was pointless. I think it was a dumb move. It reminded me, a lot of people are saying WCW, you know, dying days. It reminded me of like dying days of WWF when WCW was kicking their ass and Vince used to do kind of lame stuff like that. And I loved WWF back in even during the late 90s when Nitro was kicking its ass. Vince used to do stupid stuff like that, desperate ratings play like that. Go to
Yep.
Brian Pillman's wife's house, but even that was better than this. Um, you know, the Huckster, the Nacho Man,
Billionaire Ted segments.
billionaire Ted, bait and switch, saying Razor and Diesel are coming back, and then it's two different people. Like a
Two
lot of
different imposters.
stupid shit,
Right, right. I
stupid
remember this.
desperate shit like that for ratings. That it reminded me, and it's just like you don't have to do like your talent pool is really, really deep. If you just ask for help, there's I don't want to say millions, but there's a ton of people who would help. I think that's never going to happen. And the reason, and I need to shoot back to Z after over this because I want Z to do his a promo on Tony Khan. But the reason it's never going to happen and he's never going to ask for help is the whole point of AEW, no matter what anybody says, is for Tony Khan to have fun with and play fantasy booker with and just, you know, get a rise out of Dave Meltzer and get 5-star matches. Now, I just want to preface that for anybody watching at home doesn't know, I was a big AEW fan for a while, and you know, I still am a big fan of a lot of the wrestlers like Will Ospreay, FTR. You know, I've never stopped liking Bryan Danielson, even though
Yep.
for whatever reason, he saw that footage and said, "Oh, Punk's got to go" after a shove and a 3 second headlock. Whatever, okay, whatever, Brian. That's my opinion. I think it's never going to change. I think it's always going to be, but it's always going to be around because it's always going to be financed by Tony. I don't necessarily know that it's always going to be on TBS. But Z, what do you have to say about this?
All right, so
This,
we only have a little bit of time remaining, but
yeah,
as I've told you guys in private, my biggest issue with AEW, specifically Tony Khan, is I think that guy is just a complete loser, and he's a total hypocrite. He's a guy who
Rosen.
he was born rich. His father's a billionaire. He was just a big fan of professional wrestling, which there's nothing wrong with that. He
Correct.
treats he treats the and the business like does not, as CM said, does not treat it like a business. Right. He was first getting off of the getting off the ground. In other words, he says, "Oh, we don't need to rely on ex WWE stars. We can do this on our own." His whole effing roster is ex WWE stars. Here's a guy who in interviews says, "Oh, we don't need to talk about the other company. We're going to do this on our own." Guess what? All he does is take shots and talk about the other company. Every single thing that he does on his shows is about WWE. He cannot do anything on his own. His storylines are terrible. He just thinks, I'm going to throw, Bryan Danielson against some guy from New Japan Pro Wrestling who the casual wrestling fan has never even heard of and say, oh my God, this is a dream match. Everyone's going to watch. Dave Meltzer's going to give it 5 stars. Who cares? Who cares? That is not going to pull the casual wrestling fans in to watch your show and give you better ratings and give you the longevity you need over time. It's not going to grow your audience at all. Okay, so you can keep playing fantasy booker, play fantasy wrestling, be the biggest wrestling fan in the world with unlimited funds. But you know what? That has to change for you to grow your business model. You're afraid to run because you're horrible. When they come to Philly, they run the Liacouras Center. They couldn't fill the Wells Fargo Center. So, I mean, he's just a total hypocrite. A product of just growing up rich. And listen, I'm fully aware that Vince was the same way. Vince was born into it.
That's correct.
Took daddy's money, so I don't want to sound like a hypocrite either. But also, I don't want to, again, I said I hate the tribalistic wrestling fans. I don't want to say that, oh my God, I'm so anti-AEW, because I'm not. Because AEW does do some great things. They have great wrestlers. Again, I will always love Bryan Danielson. I will always love Edge. I think MJF is awesome. Mm-hmm. I think Orange Cassidy has run its course, but the respect and the last angle for Sting was awesome, and they deserve props for that. And like Justin said earlier, if it wasn't for their presence on a major network, that was the catalyst that WWE needed to go on this incredible run that WWE is on right now.
Yeah, I agree.
They can't touch the WWE. They should stop trying to touch the WWE.
Especially
the original.
Yeah.
Especially now. Sorry, I just with Nick Khan and Hunter there, I just can't see that changing now. Like if Vince was there, then maybe, but it's headed in the right direction.
It's the ultimate little brother syndrome. I mean, it's the ultimate little brother syndrome. Like you can do your own thing. You don't have to mention them. You don't have to retaliate to them.
I 100% agree. I 100% agree.
I thought he brought up some solid points. Great points there, bro.
It's childish.
Yeah.
I gotta know, Mr. Lane. I gotta know from you why, you don't watch any WWE. So, what was the point where you were like, "I'm done with this company. I'm not watching them."
All right. Well, let me.
What was the breaking point? When was the breaking point?
All right. Well, let me defend my point. You guys want to know? I will gladly explain myself.
Look at this.
I have watched wrestling. I've watched wrestling over 35 years myself. Z. You're very accurate with your points. I would say more like 8 out of 10 wrestlers were ex-WWE people. I'll say that much. Okay, great. Now, here's one of the reasons why I felt WWE. I just can't watch it for myself. I can only speak for me, from my perspective. Now, 10 years ago, pop quiz for everybody. We have like 5 left. Yes. What launched 10 years ago? That changed the game?
WWE Network.
Correct. Now, one of the reasons, and I know this might be a petty argument, what I'm about to say next, it might be unpopular, but I don't care. WWE Network was original. It was organic. It was an original network where you could watch it.
It was like the first streaming service ever. They were ahead of the game.
That's my point there, Mr. Z, because 10 years ago, Netflix. They launched WWE Network. But
I'm right.
the major mistake I didn't like, and I think it was for a money grab or money reason, they had to transfer their network to Peacock, which I know is like part of the NBC family, and I'm saying, huh?
Yeah.
See, and I didn't like that, to be really honest, because I have a little bit of beef with Peacock, quite frankly.
Well, what's the beef? Explain the Peacock beef.
Well, let me I'll gladly explain now. If you're familiar with the
Mr. Lane,
NFL
you're not a
playoffs,
fan of the Peacock?
what's up? Not a fan of Peacock? Well, let me explain why I feel that that I'm
So
against.
you're not a fan of the cock?
Explain it.
If you watch the NFL playoffs this year, they actually had a playoff game that was only exclusive to Peacock, which I didn't like.
That's similar to how
Because
Apple TV does with certain MLB games.
Well, they do Friday night baseball for 2 games, but
Okay.
this was a playoff game. See, NFL is the most popular sport in America. Heck, WrestleMania was held in an NFL arena.
Oh yeah.
For crying out loud.
All right.
The point
Eagles.
of it
Yeah.
was the matchup was between the Miami Dolphins and then the eventual world champion Kansas City Chiefs. You can only watch that game on Peacock. Forget about Thursday Night Football on Amazon. This was a playoff game, mind you, because if you lose in the playoffs, you're done. See,
Really?
it was a winner go home NFL playoff game that was on Peacock. You put your NFL playoff games on regular TV. That's what you should do. But the NFL didn't want to do that, and that's why I'm a little. That's what turned me off a little bit. They moved the WWE Network to Peacock.
Right.
That turned me off.
That was it. That was it. Yeah.
That was my breaking point. So that's just my take on it. I have other reasons. I'll explain that. Maybe I'll explain it later on in a little video of my own. So,
well, let
me ask you a question.
Shoot.
Before we real quick. So the rumor is that AEW is going to be going to Max.
I heard. Well, I heard about
watching AEW if they go to Max.
I have the Max subscription. Thank you. And
okay, so you don't have Peacock.
And I do not. Not right now. I do not. But the point of it is, I thought, and it's a little confusing because I was doing some homework on Peacock Network, which what I was going to say is, now if you have Xfinity, I thought if you had Xfinity cable, that you could get the Peacock Network for free, because that was my.
No, they did for a while. I believe that promotion ended, so now it's
So you got to pay extra money.
I pay extra because I enjoy watching old SNLs. You get old The Office. You get old a lot of good content. A lot of first run movies straight out of theaters. I was just watching Night Swim, Lisa Frankenstein, and you get the entire childhood for from WWE, WCW, and that's why I really enjoy that. Guys, this has been a really good show. Nice tight 40 minutes. We've really got a lot off our chest, I think. Mr. Lane, I'm going to give you the final word, and I want you to really shoot with this one. Give me some Rusev Lane talking about AEW as we go off the air tonight.
Middle class. I'm the voice from CJ Perry now. I crush myself.
You crush what part of yourself?
Crush any AEW people.
All right. Well, Rusev Lane, I haven't seen you in a long time, and I'm very happy to see you again. Mr. Justin, Mr. J, we got to do this again. Thanks, Mr. Z, Mr. J. Thanks for coming on the show, Mr. Lane. This has been awesome. Let's do this again real soon. How about that? How about that, sir?
Woo! Woo!
All right, guys. See you real soon. Bye.
Woo!
Woo! Because we're the two most important members of the Horsemen anyway, so you know that to be true. So, all right,
that's true.
Yeah,